Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
And this is a special presentation here on the free feed. We are going to give you guys a little taste. I know anyone who listens to this free feed hears us go on and on about the bonus content, the bonus feed, the Patreon, whatever paywall this is behind right now. We have bonus content. We talk about it all the time. We reference shows we've watched there when we're watching other shows here. We want to give the listeners here in the free feed a taste of what you can expect over in the bonus feed.
Yeah, absolutely. And over in the bonus feed, as we've mentioned before, if you're listening in linear fashion right now, there's more than a season's worth of additional content that you've never heard before. And if you're listening some point later after the fact, there's considerably more than that there. Right now, there's more than 40 episodes there. And yeah, I think we just thought that this would be a good opportunity. The first time, maybe and probably the only time that we'll do this, but an opportunity for you to hear what the patrons, what the supporters of this show, that as we talk about on the free and bonus feed, while we appreciate everybody's listenership, the people that pay to listen to the bonus feed, they help this show, both free and paid, continue to go on. And yeah, not only, we should mention, on that bonus feed is there additional content, but in the case of the show we're going to bring to you now, and several that are on there in that feed as well, we have shows that are chosen by supporters, by patrons, for us to watch.
That's right. It's one of the extra bonuses. So, you're looking at the bonus feed, you're like, dude, I'm not paying $5 to listen to that episode. That's not how it works. You're reading it wrong. You're doing it wrong. You pay the $5, it unlocks the entire back catalog of the bonus feed. So you don't get one episode, you get that whole season's worth that Adam just described. And if, as you're listening to it, if you said, man, I'd love to be the randomizer sometime, you can bump up to the additional $10 tier, or whatever the tier is at the time you're listening to this. You bump up to the tier, you send us a message, say, hey, I want you to review this, here's a link, and then we review it. You bump back down to the lower bonus content tier. You continue to get that audio. You get you get to hear the podcast that you commissioned, you chose for us to review. And here's an example of it. We're going to get into it here shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should note as well that over on the bonus content, it's a free-for-all. It is anything and everything. The Be the Randomizer shows that supporters have chosen. A lot of times those are full shows, pay-per-views, TV shows, but we also pretty much anything that is oddball, that doesn't fit into the theme of a season here on the free feed, that gets thrown into the randomizer, gets thrown into the bonus content. And we've reviewed some great stuff like Ric Flair versus Barry Windham from NWA TV in 1987. We've reviewed old stuff like WWF from the Madison Square Garden in 1974. And we've reviewed some really, really weird and strange stuff as well. Some individual matches, some oddball stuff. Stan Hansen versus Antonio Inoki from Stampede Wrestling comes to mind as one. I think we also had early on in the time of the bonus feed. Was it Bruce Hart and Brian Pillman versus Terry and Dory Funk Jr. from 1995. Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker from 1997.
It's all over the place.
It's all over the map. Several matches or shows from Japan. Anything and everything is over there. So if you're looking for more content, that is where you can get it. And the show you're about to listen to will give you an idea, like you said, Jeremy, of what you've been missing.
Yep, a commission podcast, HEATWAVE, ECW's HEATWAVE, 1998. So without further ado, enjoy a taste of the bonus content. Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
And you are in the bonus feed. This is bonus content. But like patron Kelly, longtime patron supporter of this show, Kelly's requested a lot of great shows in the past and has requested another one here that we're very excited to review because he went to the tier where you can be the randomizer, the executive producer, and choose the content. So with that, again, shout out and a thank you to patron Kelly for choosing this show here. We're going to ECW's Heatwave 1998. This pay-per-view was from August 2nd, 1998, the Hara Arena in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, a arena that you wouldn't necessarily before the show have associated with ECW. It felt in some ways like it was the furthest west, if you can call Dayton, Ohio, west, that ECW had branched to that point. Also noteworthy, I think, for you and I, Jeremy, in that this was the first ECW pay-per-view that we were actually able to follow weekly TV leading into it. We, in Chicago, got ECW TV on WJYS, the lowest power station it could have possibly been on over the air. I believe Friday nights into Saturday mornings at 2 a.m. But we got TV, if my memory serves me correctly, a couple weeks before this show. And so we're actually able to see the hype, and that, you know, we've talked about on other podcasts, kind of talking about ECW and talking about like the fervor of our fandom. I can say for me, it was pretty much at its peak in that I was finally getting to see ECW live on TV, or not live, but seeing the tape TV, getting to see the pay-per-views, and then knowing that in the not too distant future, when we got into 1999, that they would be coming to Chicago.
Yeah, I was very excited, and I think the statute of limitations is up here, so I can confess something to our bonus subscribers. I remember this was one of the first pay-per-views I got to watch via my cheater box.
Oh, wow!
Yeah.
So while I was legal doing scramble vision for pay-per-views I couldn't order, which for those of you who are too young to remember what that is, A, I hate you and I'm jealous of the fact that you're so young. B, that was where if you didn't order a pay-per-view, you could switch to the channel. You could put the channel on, and it would just have crazy scrambled. You couldn't make anything out visually, but it would have the audio of the pay-per-views. So there were many, particularly WWF pay-per-views in the late 80s through most of the 90s that I consumed as a quasi-radio broadcast. You, meanwhile, were a scofflaw.
Yes.
And we're using the cheater box, which actually, quick note, for those of you that listened to the recent bonus content with the WCW New Japan Super Show, when I went to my former old-time best friend Billy Bach's house, his family, they had a cheater box. So that was my first and one of my only cheater box experiences. And because I'm me, I was worried that the police were going to come as a 9-year-old and like haul me away because I was watching a pay-per-view illicitly.
Hey, buying a box from the back of a penny saver seemed as legit as it got. And at a time, this was at a time where you had 3 pay-per-views a month, right? Yeah. So, and when you're a hardcore fan like everyone here, you had to watch 3 pay-per-views a month. You weren't going to skip any.
Or in my case, it was, which I've talked about on this show before, we had a strict 1 pay-per-view per month policy. I was able to convince my mom that we could do 2 if I did extra chores, since the ECW shows were only in 1995 and they weren't at that point monthly yet, so it wasn't as big of a problem, I guess.
Heatwave 98 was the 5th ECW pay-per-view event, and if you're familiar with the show we did on the free feed called Sunday Night Heat, the debut of WWF Sunday Night Heat was on the same night as the ECW Heatwave show. It aired an hour. It went head to head, and there was actually talk about moving the start time to not have to go head to head with the debut of Heat, which they were actually pushing as a big time show, and they were going to load up.
Which clearly, by the time we got, not that long after the debut, by the time we got to the episode we reviewed, outside of a very bored Vince McMahon cutting several promos and The Rock appearing for a minute and a half, I guess having Mark Miro and Godfather didn't make it the A show or the 1A show.
So this ECW Heatwave pay-per-view drew 4,376 fans, paying a total of $110,000. And so just shy of a sellout.
Or as Joey Styles would say later on, pretty much a sellout.
Pretty much a sellout.
Which is pretty much not true. Anything could be pretty much a sellout, but I mean, Joey was selling it, so good for him.
The aforementioned Joey Styles is in the ring to welcome us to the show. Loud Joey chants, and he welcomes his co-host, his color commentator. It's the ECW Heavyweight Champion, the franchise Shane Douglas, along with Francine.
Yeah, and Fashion Corner on Shane Douglas.
Oh, you're skipping Francine's Fashion
Corner?
Corner?
I mean, there is no Fashion Corner. She was basically naked. Shane Douglas was, in fact, not naked. He looked, the best way I can describe it is he looked like a combination of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, and a Pittsburgh Steelers terrible towel.
Yes, he was with a gigantic brace on his arm.
Yes. So he was wearing jorts. He had a bright yellow triple threat shirt. He had a Shawn Michaels getting beat up outside of a bar in Syracuse level leather beret on his head. And then, as you mentioned, the huge brace on his arm and his elbow, which I'm trying to think back that, what was it? The ECW TV that was in the opening episode, I believe, of season 2 of the free feed, where we talked about the Shane Douglas Taz build.
Yes.
This show also comes on the heels, which we'll get to later, of if you go back into the free feed, which you probably have already listened to it, but the Living Dangerously 98 show, which is kind of both of those shows that I just mentioned are Taz trying to work his way to the big boss, Shane Douglas. More on that later.
Yeah, so they're in the ring, and we get our first F-bomb of the night, which, to remind everyone the context, that was pretty edgy in 98.
Oh, yeah, and ECW was very concerned about being pretty edgy. We've talked about a few years later, they were over-concerned with it, and it came off pretty lame. But here, no, it was Shane Douglas at his Shane Douglas-ist.
Yeah, Douglas, he reminds us that Bam Bam put Taz through the ring last time. Tonight he's going to put him through the concrete floor. They talk about Francine's fake boobs, and then we cut to the intro song.
Joey gets shoved into said fake boobs, and then Joey says, "I bought a new suit. It's double-breasted." And Francine says, "I bet it didn't cost you $6,000 like these did." And then, that occurs. And then, yes, we get the actual ECW Open. We get not only the visual, but we get the theme song. So thankfully, here on the streaming service version of this, they left that in, unlike on that recent TV show.
The TV show is missing.
That weird generic music. And believe me, there's more than enough weird generic music here on this pay-per-view, but glad we had the ECW Open.
The first match on the show, Justin Credible comes out with his crew.
Yeah, and what a crew it is. It is Jason, the sexiest man alive, Chastity, Nicole Bass, and then Justin Credible wearing his Got Blood shirt. We're informed by Joey that Justin Credible is only 24 years old here, which is insane to think of, because you think of him years before as Aldo Montoya,
right,
the Portuguese man of war who was not Portuguese and is not much of a man of war. That had already happened. Justin was here in 1998, only 24 years old. Then Joey makes the incredibly lame joke about Nicole Bass is like Russia because she's bigger than China. And then I have flashbacks to Asia in the graveyard match in WCW.
Yeah, Jerry Lynn is his opponent, and this is apparently the final match in the summer series between these two men.
Yes, which I vaguely remember. I think it's funny that it's a summer series. This is the deciding match, but there's no stats.
We have no idea how many matches.
Yeah, it's not tied 14-14. There's no stats, but this will determine the end of the feud. Joey says that Jerry Lynn is the hardest working and most underrated wrestler, not sports entertainer. And so, yeah, we get a lot of that from Joey here where, again, context, it's ECW and it's 1998.
They got to take shot. They're shooting. They're punching up.
Yes.
Is the story. So
every opportunity, whether it be Shane Douglas or the funny thing is every time Joey says something like that, Shane Douglas loves it. He's so happy.
Oh, of course. And Shane Douglas, I would say, overall review of Shane Douglas on the show, he disappears a lot. As a color commentator. He just... I forget he's there because I'm also used to Joey Styles solo calling a show.
Yeah.
So like I'll get comfortable with Joey Styles and then all of a sudden I'll be startled by Shane Douglas is still there. I didn't know if he left the booth or not.
Well, even more than that, there's a few moments where Francine actually says stuff.
Oh, that's super off-putting.
There were like only a couple times and I'm like, oh yeah, you're here. I didn't mind it because for one, as the show went along, I thought Shane was better than I expected he would be. And then you mentioned that, Joey Styles are so used to on the TV show it being by himself, knowing that they're always going to have a color commentator on pay-per-view. I much prefer this to some of the other things that they tried as far as color commentators with Joey.
Lynn starts with the advantage, good chain wrestling, credible with the knee to the gut, push him to the corner. We get our first chop battle. Lynn, he gets sent in, tries to go up and over, gets caught. Credible tries to hit his move. That's incredible.
God, back then, even now, what a lame name for this, the spinning tombstone pile driver from this guy who, like, his whole thing is that he's, like, taking out all the legends. He has no respect. And this finisher sounds like Johnny Ace and Shane Douglas would have done it as a tag team finisher in the Dynamic Dudes. You mentioned the spot with Jerry, the tip-up. He hits it once in the corner into a twisting sunset flip. Hits a second rope crossbody, and then goes to the other corner, tries to do the same thing. That's when Justin almost goes, that's incredible on him.
What I did like is that Styles explains what that move is. That
Yes.
It's a jumping tombstone pile driver, because I love when they describe moves and don't just tell me what the wacky move name is.
Yes,
because again, I might be parachuting in. I might be a new fan. Help tell me what this move is that I'm looking for.
What would you have thought That's Incredible would have been? To me, I would have thought it was like a cartwheel into an abdominal stretch or something like
Hayabusa's 450 later.
Yes, that too. The other end of the spectrum. That's Incredible does not sound like a tombstone pile driver, but we digress.
Yeah. So Credible sends Lynn in. Lynn with tilt-a-whirl head scissors, clotheslines Credible over the top to the floor. This at this point, Lynn to the top hits a plancha off the top rope to the floor. Back inside.
Well, Jerry may have injured his ribs at that point. That's sort of a note to file away for later. Also, we should note Jerry Lynn is just in incredible shape. Like you go back to 7 years earlier, the match that we talked about here on the Patreon feed, on the bonus content feed, I should say, with Jerry Lynn and Lightning Kid. Jerry was in good shape there, but Jerry, he's shredded here.
Yeah, absolutely. Back inside, missed clotheslines and leapfrogs and Credible counters into an inverted DDT. He starts working over Lynn down in the corner. Jason holds the chair in front of Lynn's face. Credible runs knee first into the chair, driving it into the face of Jerry Lynn.
This is the first moment on the show where it's like, oh yeah, sometimes in ECW, seconds would distract the referee so a chair could be used. Other times it would just happen. There was no discernible difference between the rules, but it was ECW, so we all just went along with it.
Then we had a sit-out power bomb onto a chair for a 2. Put one on the scoreboard for sit-out power bomb. We'll be revisiting that throughout the night.
It's the move of the night, much like the inverted atomic drop was the move of Royal Rumble '89, which we've not reviewed on this podcast, but I just remember that as a kid. Also, all of us a particular bone to pick with Joey Styles when it comes to sit-out power bombs a little bit later.
Yes, I will be calling it exactly that way later on as well. So
we should also just quickly mention that out of this spot, though, John Finnegan, the referee, he asks Jason where the chair came from, but it is in the best, most stereotypical cheesesteak in his mouth Philly accent you have ever heard. Just, I don't know if that's too deep of a cut to pull for the audio, but I was amused.
Lynn's thrown outside. Bass holds Lynn while Jason lays in kicks. Chop battle on the outside. Lynn's thrown into the guardrail. Incredible grabs someone's cup of beer and hits Lynn in the face with it.
Yes, the beer punch, the first one of the evening here in Dayton, Ohio.
And back in the ring, Credible's thrown into the corner, up and over, onto the apron. He clotheslines Lynn, then goes to the top rope, but he gets caught coming off into a flapjack.
This was weird because from the camera angle, I thought Jerry inverted atomic dropped him off of like all-in-one motion, caught him, dropped him on his knee crotch first. So I thought that was the end of the move. I thought that was the move, and then all of a sudden up he goes and it's a flapjack. I'm like, okay. Then we get what you always expect, just Incredible doing a boss man slam.
Yeah, he gets caught and Incredible hits a boss man slam. And it's like the twisting version of the boss man slam.
It was like just Incredible as Abyss doing the black hole slam. It's definitely the smallest guy I've ever seen use that move.
Chin lock by Credible.
As one does when you're just Incredible.
Lynn fights out, tries a sunset flip. Credible sits down, but Lynn uses his legs to get him over into the pinning position. A few pin counters back and forth. Lynn then gets him in position and hits, wait for it, a sit-out power bomb. 2 count only.
A tiger bomb. Except it's not a tiger bomb, because a tiger bomb is when you double underhook into it. This was just a sit-out power bomb. You could have called it a Liger bomb, but calling it a tiger bomb was pretty ridiculous. The thing that annoyed me more than that, though, is we got the stupid, annoying MTV-style diagonal camera shot from the ringside camera.
Yeah, that's...
I have a few issues with the camera work on this show. That was one of them. There's another one that like brought the worst memories of like actual like modern WWE style camera work that I'll get to in a minute.
Both men are on the top rope. Lynn hits a top rope Rana for another 2 count.
Perfectly executed.
Lynn back up top, went for a flying Rana, but Credible power bombs him as a counter.
That was one of those where you know it's going to be countered because Jerry Lynn is not going to be hitting a Rey Mysterio style flying Rana. Jerry, great high flyer, but to a certain extent.
Jason throws Credible a chair. He sets it up, but Lynn counters into a DDT on that chair. Goes for the pin, but Chastity puts Credible's foot on the bottom rope.
I actually really like, too, here where Shane Douglas, one of his, intersperses his color commentary talking about how scorching hot it is in the arena, and that's why the men are sweating so much and they may be exhausted. That's one of those great things that you want a color commentator to do. Tell me something that I can't understand sitting at home watching this.
He actually he actually says something later that Joey Styles is like, that's actually a really valuable point you just contributed for the first time on the show.
Yeah, it was a bit of damning with faint praise, backhanded compliment, all of the above.
So Lynn sets up a table outside. Both men are on the top rope, and Lynn hits a Frankensteiner off the top, sending Credible through the table outside to the floor. Wow.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
This was wild. I actually vividly remember this spot. We'll talk about when we get to the end of the show what our thoughts are overall. Going into this, my thought, again, not having rewatched any of these shows recently, was at the top 3 ECW pay-per-views in this order were Anarchy Rules 99, Barely Legal, the first ever ECW pay-per-view in 1997, and this show coming in third. So it'd be interesting to see how those memories mix. But yeah, it was awesome though, because as dramatic and impressive as this was, it was a lot safer than you would think. Yeah. Like Justin went through kind of rear first, but not in a really dangerous way. I was impressed with how they pulled this off. Still an awesome visual, and the first of many Timekeeper's table spots. I feel like the Timekeeper's table is like in old video games where like you would die, you would blink 3 times, and then you'd be right back where you were. I feel like that's what happened at the Timekeeper's table.
Lynn with a cover, but Chastity distracted the ref. Jason in with a chair, but Lynn hits Credible from behind. Jason. There's
a lot to recap here. This got very ECW by the end.
So Jason's in with a chair, but Lynn hits Jason with a tiger bomb.
Tiger bomb, or a sit-out power bomb / Liger bomb.
Yes. Bass then grabs Lynn in a fireman's carry, then hits Bass with a low blow. That's right.
Yeah, because that was the comedy
That was
here.
the
That
comedy.
Nicole Bass is supposed to be a man, so we're supposed to laugh when she gets low blowed, and we get a lot of things in 1998 here from Joey Styles and Shane Douglas that didn't play particularly well back then and certainly don't now.
Bass gets hit with a steel chair to the back. Chastity in the ring holds. So Chastity's in the ring. Credible from behind is holding Lynn. Chastity goes to kick Lynn low, but Lynn jumps and she kicks Credible low. That was a cool spot.
It was a cool spot, but it's one of my favorite wrestling physics things where, like, when you're a wrestler, it's like hitting a button and then the move has to be executed to its end regardless of what happens.
Stop.
It's like when a guy jumps off the top rope and the guy that he's supposed to be hitting moves out of the way, and after the guy moves out of the way, the guy executing the move will still fully go through all the motions of executing the move. That's what this was here, but it was a fun, creative spot. At this point then, because it's ECW, Jerry tombstones Chastity.
Both men back to the top rope. Lynn gets hit low. Credible grabs him and hits his tombstone pile driver off the top, killing Lynn. This looked brutal.
It looked brutal. It looked incredible. Much more than the That's Incredible twisting tombstone. It looked, but it was so perfectly executed. It looked like if you're going to animate this move in a video game, you would have motion captured or studied very closely this execution of it. That's the win for Just Incredible.
14 minutes, 36 seconds for your opener.
I remember loving this match as a newly minted 17-year-old watching on TV in my parents' basement. I really enjoyed it here as well. It got really ECW by the end, but still really good action. And this was one of those, really the whole series was, it was part of that ECW showing, yeah, we've got guys that can actually wrestle too. It's not just, punch and stab.
No, and it's a hot opener.
Yeah.
That was how they structured their show, was always as hot of an opener as you can get. Lance Storm is out next.
He is. And they're talking about how he's developed this incredibly engaging personality. And I see no evidence of it on my TV screen. Again, love Lance Storm, one of my favorite wrestlers. One of my favorite guys in ECW during this time period, and particularly even over the next year. But yeah, he doesn't seem particularly interesting here.
His opponent, Chris Candido. Candido is accompanied by the former Sonny, Tammy Sitch,
yes,
his fiancée.
A big surprise here. Candido has Rick Steiner style earmuffs on to cover a ear injury that has required surgery apparently here in storyline. Tammy introduces Candido.
Quick note about from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He reports that Tammy Sitch was fired by WWF a week before this show. She was apparently given an ultimatum to go to rehab or be fired. So she went to rehab, claimed she didn't have a problem, refused treatment, stopped responding to WWF's attempts to reach her, so they fired her.
And the natural landing spot through that progression of events is always the ECW locker room. I will just say that story checks out as far as how she appeared on this show.
Very much so, yeah. So Tammy, like you mentioned, does the ring intro for Candido. We're reminded that these are former tag team champions going at it here. Storm starts out with a spinning heel kick.
Well, before he does, though, we get the Chris Candido as Rick Steiner and Tammy Sitch as Scott Steiner, which was an amazing statement in and of itself.
Yes, they did the Steiner pose.
Yes, he's barking because he's wearing the Rick Steiner style headgear. So that was...
got a big reaction from the crowd.
Yes, and from me on my couch.
We get a chop battle. Storm beats him down in the corner. Drop kick to the downed Candido. Then Storm takes off the headgear. Storm is in the corner, goes up and over, lands on the apron, but Candido kicks him, knocks him to the floor.
Hold on, before we get to any of that, you are leaving out what I think is the coolest spot of this match, and maybe my favorite spot of this entire show, even though it didn't involve tables or anything like that. Candido goes for a leapfrog as Storm is running at him, and Storm, who has just unbelievable vertical leaping ability, jumps up and hits him with a spin kick in the face while Candido is at the apex of his leapfrog. Very cool, and I don't recall seeing that spot really ever before.
Yeah, we get a Crossbody by Candido to the floor, wiping out Storm. Back in the ring, Candido with a submission, holding Storm's arms behind his back.
Yeah, kind of surfboarding here, but Lance gets out with a double mule kick, which is pretty cool.
Super impressive. Tammy then trips Lance.
Who just ignores it, which I thought was great. She goes to trip him, and he does not sell it at all.
He falls down, but gets right back up and drop kicks Candido, then goes outside to chase Tammy around the ring. Tammy's in the ring, and as Storm comes in, he clotheslines Candido, tries to do a Rana, but Candido hits
a running Tiger Bomb. If you could see my air quotes very sarcastically. This was a running Liger Bomb that Joey Styles was convinced was a Tiger Bomb. Very impressive, even with the bad call. And Joey's great. I'm not trying to harp on him, but that just, we saw that move or variations.
The problem is the move was hit many times in every single match. So it was just over and over and over again. A sit-up powerbomb, sit-up powerbomb.
Yeah, it was like one of his very few lapses in pro wrestling knowledge at that point, and it just, by the circumstances of the show, got hammered home over and over and over again. After that, Candido hits a big delay vertical suplex, goes to the second rope, and hits the New Jersey jam, like the Alabama jam, but a second rope leg drop here, but only 2.
Storm hits a super kick. He gets a 2, puts his head down, and Candido hits a swinging neck breaker.
I love that. That's one thing wrestling needs so much more of, is the swinging neck breaker counter to the back body drop.
Storm caught running in, gets hit with a power slam. Storm gets dropped stomach first across the top rope.
Well, at that point, too, after that power slam that leads to a long 2, we get Tammy just casually saying, "Molyneux, you suck." And that made me, that was, she contributed to the show here. I enjoyed that.
Candido then tries to drop him stomach first across the top rope again, but Storm lands on the apron. Then Storm suplexes Candido from the inside of the ring all the way out to the floor outside. Candido splats on the concrete floor hard.
This was horrifying. We've seen this spot happen here and there, and it almost always ends up looking much safer than you expect it's going to be at the beginning of the execution of the move. This looked like the animation of this move from No Mercy for N64, where he said the man just absolutely splats on the concrete floor, no pretty blue mats. This was
so brutal.
This was tough.
Baseball slide knocks Candido over the barricade into the first row. Storm then springboards to the top rope and hits a plancha over the barricade into the front row, wiping out Candido.
Super impressive. This is where you really realize how just effortlessly athletic Lance Storm is. Like, I would make the argument that I'm not talking about, background pedigree. A guy was, Jim Ross's dream of being a 4-time NCAA All-American or anything, but just sheer pro wrestling athleticism. Lance Storm's got to be on that Mount Rushmore of at least the last 35 years.
And the comparison that I always think of when I think of Lance Storm and how effortless his athleticism is, he looks like he's not trying hard, but he's doing gigantic drop kicks, springboard leaps, and he's doing so much impressive stuff effortlessly. It reminds me of when Cubs pitcher Mark Pryor came up, and you would see this guy effortlessly throw a pitch, and then the radar gun would say 96. And you're like, what? Like that guy, and he would effortlessly throw a pitch, and the ball would just fall off the table with a curveball, and you're like, what? Like that guy doesn't even look like he's trying to throw hard at all.
The exact same thing with Lance Storm of his teammate Kerry Wood, who had the exact same stuff, but looked, even though his facial expression didn't change, it looked like his arm was about to go flying into the crowd every single time he threw a pitch.
Yeah, the smooth, effortless style of a Mark Pryor reminds me of the smooth, effortless style of a Lance Storm.
That is the type of analysis I can guarantee you will not get on any other podcast.
So we talked about both men getting wiped out in the front row. They come back inside. They trade punches. Storm goes down, and Candido stumbles around, lands into a pin, gets a 2 count.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Candido spots. Got to see that a couple times in person for his little run in IWA Mid-South before he tragically passed away. Candido's just one of those great little things, guys, that's super comedic, but then can still pull out a great match.
Both men are on the top. Storm hits a top rope superplex. back up to the top, spinning heel kick for a 2 count.
Again, talk about super just athletic in an effortless manner. That spinning heel kick for sure.
A sit-out power bomb by Storm.
A Tiger Bomb!
Then
we're at either 4 or 5 through 2 matches. My favorite part, too, is that Jason, in the previous match, tried to do that to Jerry Lynn, but Jerry Lynn was able to flip out of it and take him out.
So Storm springboards to the top, but gets caught in another power slam by Candido. Storm sent to the corner. He leaps to the top rope and hits a back elbow off the top.
Again, effortless athleticism.
So smooth.
All one motion, jumps, no hands to the top rope, jumps back off with an elbow.
Tammy then hands powder to Candido, but Storm hits the hand of Candido, causing the powder to go into Candido's eyes, and something about Tammy and powder made me giggle.
Yeah, there was some symbolism here that was not too very, very thinly veiled, I'll say. Then we get, as you mentioned,
he's staggering around blinded.
Yes, he's blinded by the powder, and he's throwing wild punches like he's Terry Funk, but he connects.
And he hits the referee. The ref is down. Super kick by Lance. He goes to the top. Moonsault position, facing away from the ring. Tammy comes into the ring, starts rubbing on the ass of Lance Storm.
Yes, because that was part of the story for a long time with this this partnership, much like a Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. Not quite the mega powers exploding, but here a triple threat member and a triple threat prospect were torn apart by the lust of... Basically, this was Tammy Sitch kind of somewhat engaging in what Randy Savage was accusing Elizabeth of engaging in.
Yeah, so she then pushes him off, crotching him on the top turnbuckle. She shoves the ref. He grabs Sonny as Candido, still blind, tries to roll up the ref in a schoolboy, but the ref at the same time pulls the top of Tammy's dress all the way down. She falls down to cover up. Candido then, realizing that Storm is on top, he goes to the top to get Storm. Both men are up there, and Candido hits the blonde bombshell, which is a crazy release power bomb. Storm flew almost the entirety across the ring, and it was unbelievable. What a finish. Ref counts the pin. Your winner, Chris Candido.
He was a human meteorite here, tumbling through space and landing in the mat, on the mat, almost in the mat. He should have gone through it like Taz and Bigelow did a couple months earlier at that pay-per-view. Just a crazy finisher that really, it's kind of incredible you don't see that stolen. You don't see guys trying that now. Maybe it's because it's almost impossible to not get concussed off of it, but man, talk about a visually impressive finish.
Yeah, for sure. That match was 11 minutes on the dot, and I like to think that Lance Storm is such a stickler that they said, you've got 11 minutes for this match.
We're going to do exactly 11.
They nailed it, yeah.
It was perfectly fine. It wasn't bad. It felt a little strange for the show to start with 2 kind of wrestling-heavy singles matches. Like, to me, if that would have been the opener and you didn't have Jerry versus Just Incredible, it would have seemed better. But this was just a 3 minutes shorter, not quite as good version of the opener.
At the announce table, Styles tells us that there was an incident earlier today in the parking lot. It's New Jack. He tells Jack Victory that he's going to get his ass whipped tonight.
He's with the fans. You've got a bunch of people who don't look like they would ever be hanging out with New Jack, but because it's wrestling, they're all hanging out together, having a good old time. This felt a little bit too much like New Jack as like ECW's Hacksaw Jim Duggan or something. It didn't give me the edge that I want with New Jack, but out of nowhere, Jack Victory shows up. New Jack says we don't have to wait. They're about to fight in front of all these fans lined up outside of the Hera Arena. But here come the Dudleys in a limo.
They jump out of the car and start the attack. Balls Mahoney and Axel Rotten show up. It's a wild brawl in the parking lot. The Dudleys and Jack Victory get in the car and speed away. New Jack is down and he's hurt.
Well, his leg is hurt. It was hard to tell. I don't know if they're trying to imply that they ran over New Jack's leg.
I couldn't tell.
With the car, he's bleeding because if he, a deep thought will cause you to bleed when you have that much scar tissue.
the weapons match later will not happen on the pay-per-view because of this attack.
Joey, here we go again, where he's talking about the format, and he says it wasn't on his format. But what we do have on our format now is RVD and Sabu with Bill Alfonso in the locker room.
Yes, that's right. At this point in time, RVD and Sabu are your ECW Tag Team Champions. RVD is also the World Television Champion, and the cockiness of RVD is rubbing Sabu the wrong way.
Yes,
and
that's
they
sort
are
of
teasing the dissension here.
Exactly, teasing the dissension. RVD pretty openly saying that he's the main guy in the tag team. Alfonso pretty much agreeing with him, and you see Sabu stewing in the background, but it's not leading anywhere just yet.
Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka.
Here we go. And man, you talk about Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka. I think it was maybe the second week of ECW TV that we had here in Chicago was an ECW arena taping, as far as what we got to see on TV. And I vividly remember watching Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka. It was the first time I'd ever seen either guy. And I remember the powerbomb spot with Awesome powerbombing Tanaka over the top rope through a table on the floor. And Tanaka goes through the table and hits so hard that he keeps sliding. Oh. And he slides where like his head is directly under like the connectors of the barricade on the floor. That always stuck with me, and that's what leads to this match.
Yeah, these guys had such a good match. It was in Queens, New York, a week or so before the show. They had such a good match, and the crowd loved these guys so much that they rearranged the pay-per-view to get these guys on the show.
Which was a great move. Just crazy all-out brutality. Joey Styles does a great job of recapping their feud in FMW, where Mike Awesome was known as the Gladiator, and then that moving to ECW, and talking about how up until they arrived, basically till they arrived to ECW, or maybe just prior, Awesome had completely owned Tanaka in the feud, but now they were more equals.
Awesome thrown into the corner. He jumps to the middle rope, then to the top rope, hits a back elbow. So an extra step that Lance Storm doesn't have to make, but still super impressive because Mike Awesome's way more gigantic than Lance Storm.
6'8", 300 pounds. I had not watched any prime era Mike Awesome in a long time, and God, there's so much about this match that's insane. But his athleticism,
he was so good.
If that guy could have talked at all, or if we were in a different era. In WWF in particular, where you had managers that were used to cover for these guys, like just imagine a Jimmy Hart or a Bobby Heenan managing this crazy athletic guy like back in their era. Would have been unstoppable.
Well, could you imagine a guy like this being a fat chick thriller?
I can't.
How did that not work?
Yeah, how did that not work? And shockingly, that was WCW. I can't even do what I always do, which is blame WWE for ruining someone. That was my beloved WCW.
Tanaka tries a leapfrog, gets caught, and Awesome hits an overhead belly-to-belly suplex. Awesome from the apron, back into the ring with this slingshot shoulder block. Then a big splash for a 2 count.
Yeah, a standing splash, which usually always leads to the guy getting his knees up in response, but not Mike Awesome here. He hits it. Tanaka doesn't get his knees up. Then we get a clothesline over the top rope from Awesome onto Tanaka. And then Mike Awesome goes full WrestleMania Undertaker dive and hits an insane no-hands tope over the top rope. Lands on Tanaka, but also crashes and burns hard into the guardrail.
Yeah, he nearly missed everybody and killed the front row. Yes. But it looks like he hit the guardrail hard, hit Tanaka hard. This was just insane. Everybody's down outside. They finally get back in. Awesome then off the top hits a clothesline, release German suplex. Tanaka pops up from the release German and hits a power bomb on Awesome.
Power slam.
I'm sorry, power slam.
Basically, that quick, super fast rotation.
I'm used to saying sit out power
bomb. This was a tiger slam. No, it was just a power slam, but it was very reminiscent of that quick snapping rotation that years later Samoa Joe would get on his counter power slams.
Springboard clothesline by Tanaka. Then he grabs a chair, Tanaka gets a running start down the ramp, runs the entire length of the ramp, and hits Awesome in the head with a chair. Tanaka up top hits a drop kick, only a 2 count.
Yeah, Tanaka on fire here. And again, he's clearly more in his element than he was in that match with Doug Furness a couple months earlier at Living Dangerously 98. I mean, those guys had not wrestled each other, and here he's wrestling his greatest rival that he'd been in the ring with dozens of times. But I was excited to see this is much more of the Masato Tanaka that I enjoyed.
Awesome catches Tanaka in a fireman's carry and dumps Tanaka to the floor. Both men outside. They both have chairs. Tanaka hits the chair. They hit each other.
A chair war.
We have a chair battle, and then he eventually
dueling.
hits the chair out of Awesome's hand.
They're jousting. This is the ECW version of medieval times with chairs. There's no roasted chicken for us to eat while we were watching. But yeah, crazy stuff all around.
After a shot across the back with the chair, Tanaka charges and gets backdropped over the guardrail into the first row again. You're getting your money's worth out of these ringside seats at an ECW show. Awesome does a springboard plancha off the top to Tanaka in the first row.
This is wild. So he hits the move. That's not the most impressive thing, though. He springs to the top rope, stands there. Again, the middle of the top rope, stands there, 6'8", 280, and poses, and then jumps off. I don't know that I've ever seen, I know we just talked about Lance Storm, but a more freakish athlete, the balance that this massive human being had to spring to the top rope, stand there, and then jump off. Just insane. It
almost made it more impressive because we just literally saw Lance Storm do it in the match before. So seeing a big guy do the same thing, you're like, whoa. Like, yeah.
Well, it's basically his way of saying, okay, Lance, maybe I can't springboard to the top rope all in one motion and jump back with a back elbow, but look at this.
Awesome gets a chair, nails Tanaka in the head a couple of times. So the sorry, I missed.
You missed a very important
part.
I missed
a very important part.
They're back in the ring. Awesome yells, "Awesome bomb!" as he has Tanaka in the powerbomb position. Joey Styles somehow thinks that Mike Awesome yelled
to his mom.
Yelled "Hi, mom!"
Yes,
just great unintentional comedy. But then he hits this sit-out powerbomb, the sit-out Awesome bomb, that somehow Joey Styles is able to restrain himself from calling a Tiger Bomb.
But again, you guessed it. It is a sit-out powerbomb. The move of the night continues.
We're up to 6, I think, now through 3 matches.
Then he goes up top, hits the huge splash, but Tanaka kicks out.
Which that would go on to be his finisher later, but it wasn't here.
Now Awesome has the chair, nails Tanaka in the head a couple of times. Just brutal chair shots.
Which, again, this match and these two guys and the trajectory of their lives forward from this just shows you like how different everybody's body and brain is, because these two men for years both took very, very, very similar punishment. Mike Awesome's life came to a tragic end some 7 or 8 years later. It was later found that he had CTE, just went through a lot of terrible stuff. Masato Tanaka, as I record this, is still putting on incredible matches in multiple companies in Japan, main eventing. He's better than he ever was. So life is weird.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Tanaka fights back with another huge chair shot. This time takes Tanaka down. Awesome covers him, but he kicks out again. Awesome then hits a running release powerbomb. He positions the table outside. Awesome then off the top hits Tanaka in the head again with a chair.
A top rope chair shot that was as violent as you would imagine. At this point, Shane on the microphone, Shane in color commentary, because yes, he is here. He is screaming at Mike Awesome about how you're making a mistake. Go to pin him.
You should pin him.
But Awesome is he's focused on that table.
Awesome tries to powerbomb him over the top, but Tanaka escapes a couple of times.
Yeah, I love that they teased it. He goes for it once. Tanaka gets out, slips behind. Awesome kicks him in the stomach, picks him up again for it. Awesome slips out again, and then we go into this terrifying spot.
Tanaka then powerbombs Awesome over the top rope, through the table, and Awesome lands high on his shoulders, neck, and head. absolutely horrifying. I screamed so loud on my couch watching this move, and this is the first holy shit chant, which is probably one of the most deserved holy shit chants of all time. Wow, unbelievable.
100%. The best way I can describe this is, remember when Kevin Nash almost killed the Giant,
right?
Big Show, Paul White, with that powerbomb attempt in WCW? This was that, but going over the top rope through a table. The problem was just with the spot was that physics were not their friend here. With Awesome being so much bigger and so much stronger than Tanaka when they would do the same spot, he could just launch him over. Tanaka would soar through the air and land flat back on the table, and really all he'd have to worry about is that his head didn't crack off the mat or off the concrete as he slid. Here, it's really hard for Tanaka to get him up. It's all he can do to get Mike Awesome over the top rope, and gravity and physics take over, and he's going down like a missile straight into the ground.
So fast. He went down so fast. Like the speed and force that he hit with was just brutal.
I'd argue this is the worst table bump I've ever seen.
Yeah, it probably is. He tries to pin him back in the ring, but Awesome kicks out.
Yeah.
Tanaka then hits his roaring elbow. But
the rolling elbow, which due to the terrible translation of Japanese in the 90s, was the roaring elbow here from Joey Styles. And that's what we all knew it for a long time before we were smartened up.
But Awesome barely kicks out. Great near fall here. Tanaka then hits a tornado DDT off the second rope into a pile of like 2 or 3 chairs, and Tanaka gets the pin finally. This brutality went 11 minutes, 49 seconds.
Yeah, what an incredible spectacle. Again, if you can separate yourself from just that stuff like this shouldn't be happening, much like we talked about on that ECW 97 TV podcast that we did on the free feed. This was just, I thought this was by far the best thing so far in this show, and it did live up to my memories of how much I adored this feud. Just wild stuff.
Taz with a promo.
We understand we're going to have some comments now from the unrecognized F the World Heavyweight Champion, Taz.
Oh, great.
Tonight's the night, Bam Bam. Tonight's the night. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, brother. In a short while, you're going to tap to the FTW World Heavyweight Champion, the only champion on pay-per-view that means anything in this business. Not Austin, not Goldberg, and especially that punk Mike Tyson. 3 letters, 1 man named Taz. And Bam Bam, you hold a victory over me. On pay-per-view, you pinned me in the middle, no excuses. And I'm taking back that victory tonight, brother. Live on pay-per-view, Heatwave. We're here, and you're gonna go down, big boy. And I know you're gonna kick my ass in the process. And that's the part I like the best. And now you're gonna ask yourself, brother, can I beat him again? Well, I'm gonna answer it for you. You can't, you won't. Because I am Taz, the FTW World Heavyweight Champion. Beat me if you can, Bigelow. Survive if I let you.
He says, not Austin, not Goldberg, not Tyson, just Taz. Beat me if you can, survive if I let you.
I always love the visual presentation of these Taz promos where he was in a completely dark room. He'd have the towel mostly over his head. They had that like 30 frames per second rather than 60 frames per second type of video that just added to the grittiness of it. Just
lo-fi.
Yeah, lo-fi for sure. Just everything you want out of ECW.
Douglas at the announce table says that the ECW championship is the only world championship, not this FTW title. The Dudleys are in the back. Gertner with his neck brace with bow tie on it. And he says that the odds are stacked in the favor of the Dudleys. Once the Dudleyville Street Fight starts, there is no one to save their opponents. So the Dudleyville Street Fight is still on. Just the Jack Victory Taz match is off. Got it. Okay.
Jack Victory, New Jack match.
The Jack Victory, New Jack weapons match is off, but a Dudleyville Street Fight will still happen.
I had forgotten about this sort of midpoint in the Bubba Ray Dudley character where he was no longer stuttering, but he apparently was from the South. He's wearing a Confederate flag do-rag, and he's got this terrible, affected Southern accent that just is not working. Then, though, what does work, we go to the ring, and we get some honestly really good dubbed fake music here on this streaming service edition of ECW Heatwave 98, as it's Jinsei Shinzaki, the former Hakushi, and Hayabusa here. In 1998, it's Shinzaki's return to the United States after his run in the WWF a few years prior. And it's the first and I believe only appearance, or one of the only high-profile appearance of Hayabusa in the United States. They're also fresh off of their appearance on the bonus content feed of this podcast after wrestling Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Taue on that episode of, or I guess that was on the free feed. That was on the free feed.
It was on the free feed, but we put out the call that we want more Hayabusa.
Yes. And Kelly listened.
And Kelly came through and found us something and commissioned us a show, and here we are getting Jinsei Shinzaki and Hayabusa against, challenging for the ECW Tag Team Championship against RVD and Sabu.
Why did so this is something we talked about just before we hit record to bring you this podcast. If they couldn't use RVD's actual entrance music, which I know they can't, they had two other options. They could use Sabu's ECW produced theme song. They could dub that over, or just use the RVD WWE theme song, which actually was really good.
It was, and there it makes no sense what this was. This was just not even close to either of those things.
No, it was like the most generic knockoff of a Joe Satriani song you've ever heard in your life. It was just generic 80s, like cruising in your car, stock music.
No, they should have gone with his WWE theme song or or Sabu's song, which we will hear later. So Shinzaki has the Hakushi temp tattoos on.
Yes, he went full Hakushi here, which I liked quite a bit. It was also like, this was a real dream match, I think, for people, because you had Sabu and Hayabusa, who had, outside of the masks, a very similar look.
Battle the genie pants.
Yeah, exactly. On top of just, Sabu being, just the reputation of just being this wild, crazy, unpredictable, impressive wrestler, and then just the aura and mystique around Hayabusa. I will say, going into this, I was very interested to watch it because as a kid, this was one of my favorite ECW matches of all time, and I'm very interested to see how it holds up.
Yeah, after this match, I was going through and doing some research for little tidbits, and in the Wrestling Observer newsletter poll for this show, it split the vote. It was voted best match on the show and voted worst match on the show.
Yeah.
So like it I'd never seen that before, where it had split the votes. Because it really could have gone either way here. So
yeah.
So RVD comes out. He's wearing his two belts, which I always love when a champion has multiple belts. They wear them both.
Stacks them around their waist, and not just putting one around the waist, one over the shoulder. Stack them on your waist.
Yep, I love that. Douglas brings up jet lag as a potential issue for the challengers here. Hayabusa and RVD start the match. They grapple to a stalemate. Hayabusa sent off the ropes. He jumps to the middle of the middle rope, turns and hits an awkward clothesline to RVD. This was clunky, and the crowd immediately piles on with a "you effed up" chant. And I screamed at my TV, "How dare you do that to Hayabusa?"
Yeah. It was definitely awkward. You could tell, particularly early in this match, that Hayabusa was nowhere near as comfortable as Shinzaki was in this environment, which, again, makes sense. Hayabusa, first time in the States. Shinzaki, very, very used to, even if the ring and ropes are different than WWF. He's been here before. He's done this. Also, at this point, this is where I remember, Bill Alfonso blows the damn whistle all match, every match.
It's so annoying. RVD and Hayabusa with a little more miscommunication, but RVD hits a Japanese arm drag. Hayabusa responds with kicks to RVD, then walks over and punches Sabu in the face.
Yes.
This was awesome and got a great reaction from the crowd.
It was great. It also got the crowd back on Hayabusa's side, and it felt like he got his swagger back pretty quickly.
Yeah, Shinzaki in. He slams RVD and then does a great Vader bomb out of the corner.
Yeah, tip up Vader bomb out of the corner. And this is where I just start gushing again about Shinzaki, in that we talk about guys that just flow and float through the air like it's water. We talked about with Lance Storm. Shinzaki is even another level off of that. I could just watch him move. Not even do moves, not even hit people. Just watch him move around the ring all day and not get bored.
Shinzaki catches RVD's kick, ducks an enziguri, but RVD hits him right in the face.
Yes.
Brutal. Awesome move here as Shinzaki looks like he's whipping RVD to the corner, but then jumps and nails an enziguri.
Yes, I love that. It's one of the coolest spots that he does, and he didn't do it that often in WWF. But yeah, he Irish whips his opponent, in this case RVD, and then instead of letting go and letting the man fly into the ropes, he holds on, kind of swings the guy back around the other way, and while he's still holding the wrist, hits an enziguri. Just really, really cool. Again, one of those things that I'm amazed you don't see people stealing now.
Jinsei Shinzaki, he does the praying rope walk around the ring, then chops RVD. Great reaction from the crowd for that one. They recognize that spot.
And he also was really smart here too, because he recognizes that here in the States, if he did that for too long, the crowd would start to get bored and would just crap on it.
Yep.
He usually in Japan would go a lot longer, go slower around the ring.
He just did two sides of the ring.
He did two sides, and he did it very quick.
Shinzaki misses a knee drop, and RVD goes to work. Tags in Sabu. We get the second rope leg drop by Sabu. It's all Sabu running wild
Sabu is incredible here. This, to me, and I'm sure it was just because of the opponents, he was so locked in. This was the most, the most crisp, the most aggressive. Just the way he moved, just with purpose. Everything he did was on. There were no mess ups here. I thought Sabu, we can talk about at the end what we thought of the match, but I thought Sabu was lights out fantastic here.
Shinzaki makes the tag to Hayabusa, and we get Hayabusa and Sabu finally.
Yes, and Sabu, again, he's like a caged animal is the best way I can describe him here throughout this match. And then he uncoils and attacks, and it's really, really cool to see.
He starts by kicking the knee of Hayabusa, then leaps to the top, bounces off from a seated position, flips over with a splash. Shoulder block, goes off the ropes again, but a kip up by Hayabusa, and he hits a drop kick where he does a full flip after the drop kick.
It's the Doug Furnace. It's the drop salt.
Sabu rolls out to the floor, and Hayabusa jumps to the middle rope, teases a dive, but then backflips back into the ring.
Sabu's great. He's frustrated here. He's throwing chairs. And Joey Styles is fantastic here as well, saying, this is the biggest threat Sabu and Van Dam have faced as tag team champions. They could seriously lose the match and the titles here. We get back in. Sabu and Hayabusa are trading punches, and this is where it's very clear that Sabu is just calling this in the ring. He's talking loud.
Yeah, he drop kicks Hayabusa in the ankle.
Which that's his go-to in this match. Every time they start to get an advantage, he just drop kicks the ankle out and then grabs a hold.
Yeah, leg lock by Sabu. Hayabusa makes the ropes. We get a camel clutch by Sabu. Rob Van Dam, he does an unnecessary backflip off the ropes and then hits the drop kick to Hayabusa, who's still in the camel clutch.
It's one of the best things about Rob Van Dam, the unnecessary backflips to get into moves, which with anyone else would be like, oh, that's indie-tastic. But here it's RVD. He's got to show off. It's awesome.
As RVD is celebrating this move with the crowd, Shinzaki hits a springboard dropkick to the back of RVD. This was so awesome. He was right in mid-pose, and Shinzaki was not having any of that.
Yeah, he was in R, V, and then as the thumbs were coming in for D, Shinzaki soars from the heavens with this dropkick. Super, super cool. And then we move into, I think was this the point where we move into that same great sequence that they did against Kawada and Taue with the multiple springboards, whether it be the moonsaults, the diving knee drop, the somersault. Love that.
Yes. So RVD and Sabu are on the floor. Hayabusa with a baseball slide. RVD and Sabu are both against the guardrail. Hayabusa then springboards off the middle rope, hits an incredibly high in the air Asai moonsault.
This is actually a different spot than what I was referencing. I was wrong, but no, this is crazy visually impressive as well.
Yeah, he couldn't go far because it's a small ringside area, but he went up.
Yeah, exactly. He went full Kurt Angle moonsault, going vertical.
Yeah, RVD, Hayabusa, and Shinzaki fight in the first few rows of the crowd. Sabu then jumps off a chair in the ring, over the guardrail to knock everybody down. Van Dam then throws everyone back over the rail towards the ring. Hayabusa's hanging over the rail, and RVD hits his leg drop across the back of Hayabusa.
Yeah, the corkscrew leg drop off the apron with Hayabusa draped over the guardrail. At this point, Bill Alfonso is screaming about Sabu being a 747 jetliner. Cool.
Sabu and RVD double team Shinzaki back in the ring. Sabu on top. He wants a chair. Bill Alfonso tosses it, but it's a little short. So Sabu has to climb down to get it. RVD has Shinzaki in a bow and arrow.
Yeah, the Rita Romero special. So he's splayed out facing the heavens as...
Sabu comes off the top, hitting Shinzaki in the stomach and ribs with a chair. A 2 count as the pin is broken up by Hayabusa.
The best thing about this whole sequence is in this 2 count, Bill Alfonso is in the ring, not as a referee as he would be on shows that we've talked about prior, but he's here just so certain that this is the finish.
Here to celebrate the victory.
Celebrating with his whistle in the ring while men are killing each other.
Double team by the Japanese. As RVD is down, we get a picture-perfect springboard senton by Hayabusa. Then a springboard knee drop by Shinzaki. This is the spot that we saw in that tag match.
That's what I was referring to. Yeah, where we get the springboard swanton from Hayabusa from one side. As he hits and rolls through, Shinzaki floats through the air from the other side with a springboard knee drop. And then as that lands, Hayabusa hits a lion salt from the opposite side again for only 2. That to me is one of the coolest double team spots. We saw it in that All Japan match, and then here at this point,
there's another guy that floats through the air. Hayabusa doing his moves, flying through the air. He's another guy that floats. It's incredible to see.
And it's actually at this point, it's just basically a tornado tag. There are no tags now.
No, and there's no more transitions.
No,
if there were any so far in this match, they're all gone now. It's spot fest.
This is move.
Hayabusa in the corner. Sabu springboards off the back of RVD to hit Hayabusa. It breaks down here, and RVD is dumped outside. We get a super kick by Shinzaki. The stunned Sabu is then caught in a German suplex with a bridge by Hayabusa. Only a 2 count. He had to kick out because RVD was late on making the save. Shinzaki, he's on the top rope. Sabu grabs him and hits a top rope Rana. Then RVD flies into your screen from the adjacent corner, turning in midair to hit one of the hugest splashes you'll ever see.
Yeah, this was a 6.5-star frog splash for sure. And usually I don't like when the camera misses the full execution of a move, but this worked perfectly. The best comparison I can make to this is Flair, Funk, when they were brawling on the floor in that I Quit match, and Ric Flair just appeared out of nowhere, flying through the air on Funk's back. This was the Rob Van Dam 5-star frog splash version of this. Awesome stuff.
What a splash. Shinzaki kicks out at 2. Van Dam goes for a German, but Hayabusa breaks it up off the top. Shinzaki then hits a bicycle kick on RVD.
Pele kick was awesome. Again, one of those moves that just floats through air and is captured, is immortalized. I always like to talk about No Mercy for the N64.
That's right.
It's very easy to create Jinsei Shinzaki Hakushi in that game, and I did, believe me.
Hayabusa up top. Shinzaki power bombs Van Dam, but Hayabusa immediately hits the Stardust Press, his 450 splash off the top. Sabu makes the save.
Yeah, just again, picture perfect, beautiful 450.
This in 1998. Who was doing a better 450 than Hayabusa at this point?
Nobody. I mean, the only thing, and in the U.S., even by 1998, very few people were. We talked about the mind-blowing Too Cold Scorpio.
Yeah, in 92.
In 92, that 450, and we weren't seeing between 92 and 98. Not a whole lot of guys were picking up that mantle in the States anyway.
So Van Dam with a somersault splash on Sabu. As Sabu hits his leg drop from the outside of the ring back inside.
Okay, the double team Rolling Thunder.
Both hitting Hayabusa at the same time. Shinzaki caught by Sabu, who puts him in a Boston Crab. Van Dam then off the top hits a leg drop to Shinzaki, who's still in the Boston Crab. So good double teaming by the champs here. Sabu rolls him over, but still only gets a 2 count. Sabu then brings a table into the ring. Shinzaki to the top rope. Hayabusa punches Sabu in the face hard. Yeah. Sabu gets up, and Shinzaki nails a top rope shoulder block for another near fall.
Yeah, flying over the table that's set up and hitting Sabu with that shoulder block.
Shinzaki starts choking Sabu with his own arms, crossing the arms and choking him.
Another move, if you go to the Creator Wrestler feature in N64, the Goku Raku stretch, as it is called in that move. It was a go-to for me to use that move when I was creating, guys. I popped big for that here, and then I heard SmackDown Mall in my head.
Van Dam tries to break it up, but Shinzaki catches the kick and hits a dragon screw. We get a ton of Shinzaki dragon screws here.
Well, it's the reverse dragon screw, and it's again N64, the Mandara Hinari, as it was called in that. But it's like a dragon screw, but instead of actually like corkscrewing your arm into the guy's knee, you like grab the leg and then almost jump and spin the guy around the other direction. It's super cool, super different. Again, another in a long list of moves that Shinzaki does that nobody else does to this day.
Sabu and Hayabusa are in one corner. Van Dam in the adjacent corner. All are on the top turnbuckles. Hayabusa gets crotched on the top. Bill Alfonso then on the apron holds a chair in front of Hayabusa's face. RVD off the top hits the kick into the chair, into Hayabusa's face. A spectacular version of the Van Daminator.
And as I always say, not as careful here as he was with The Undertaker in that hardcore title match in the WWF in 2002.
Shinzaki, again, as RVD is celebrating, attacks him from behind and goes after the leg again. The leg of the table that was in the ring is breaking as Shinzaki is trying to set up the table.
Yeah, the legs on these tables were really weird and bad. They were also... And all of the tables I had this evening, they were also like way too far in.
Yeah.
You want the legs far out on the edges of the table. Here they were too close in. They weren't really able to support the weight. It was weird. You think ECW, like, get your tables right.
Spin kick by Hayabusa knocks Sabu down. The table is half up as Shinzaki puts RVD onto it. But then the legs buckle and the table is now lying flat on the mat in the ring with RVD and Shinzaki on top of it.
Yeah, so Hayabusa then just goes to the top and hits a splash, which actually probably hurt more for RVD than it would have if they actually had a table to break, because he just had a flat, hard table under him. But as far as pro wrestling physics, it was nowhere near as impressive until the crowd didn't really react.
No, then the people were mad that the table was down and someone wasn't going to go through the table. Sabu brings in 2 more tables to rectify this situation as Hayabusa hits a Michinoku driver on Van Dam. Sabu breaks it up. Sabu throws a chair at Shinzaki, who catches it as Van Dam kicks it into his face. This was another cool variation of the Van Daminator where it's not Van Dam throwing you the chair, it was Sabu throwing it.
Yeah, exactly. No Alfonso, no Van Dam throwing it. It was Sabu. Again, didn't get the Undertaker treatment here for Jinsei Shinzaki.
No, he got, on the replay, you really saw him eat this chair. Hayabusa's on a table. Shinzaki on the table also. So they're kind of head-to-head with their legs hanging off the table. RVD and Sabu from opposite corners come off the top, both with leg drops putting everyone through the table. Spectacular finish. RVD goes for the cover, but Sabu knocks RVD out of the way so that Sabu can make the cover.
Yes.
He gets the 3 count. Still ECW World Tag Team Champions. Super fun match. Great finish. 20 minutes, 51 seconds.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten about that, what you just described sort of being the super finisher, the super tag team finisher for RVD and Sabu. They would bust that out, in the biggest matches or when they were in the most trouble. As far as the match itself, like I'm of two minds. I loved it back then, again, because it was like, oh my God, I'm getting to see Hayabusa finally. And then seeing Shinzaki again and, the spectacle of them being in there with RVD and Sabu. I greatly enjoyed it watching it back again here, but I also acknowledged that it wasn't actually that good of a match. There were some really, really impressive spots. There were some things that didn't work at all. And then there was no connective tissue between anything.
Nope.
It was just guys doing moves. And the reason it worked to whatever extent it worked was because of who the guys were doing the moves.
100%. Yeah. So like if it seemed like it went a little too long. Like they had to get everybody
Yes.
back at the end. So it was a little too long, and it was too many spots in a row without real transitions. 100% agree.
And the other issue with it as well is that when you're bringing in, and this is the biggest match they could have done when they brought in Shinzaki and Hayabusa. So it was the right match to do, but you can't really have a showcase match for the opponents against Rob Van Dam and Sabu, particularly Rob Van Dam, because he is a wrestler. Everything about his character, like it's all him getting all of his stuff in. So there's only so much room for, guys like Hayabusa and Shinzaki to really show what they can do.
We get a recap of the Bigelow and Taz feud.
March 1st, the Living Dangerously pay-per-view. Bam Bam Bigelow puts Taz through the ring en route to a shocking victory over the human suplex machine in Bigelow's hometown of Asbury Park, New Jersey. The loss sent Taz on a soul-searching mission as the one-man crime spree actually acknowledged defeat and shook Bigelow's hand at the ECW arena. But when Bigelow lost the World TV title to Rob Van Dam in Buffalo on April 4th, Taz saw his chance to regain the title from Bam Bam go down the drain. So when Shane Douglas and the Triple Threat interfered in a match between John Kronus and Taz's cousin Chris Chetty in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, it pushed the native of Red Hook to the brink. Taz confronted the Triple Threat and ended up injuring Shane's arm. The Taz-Bigelow war was on as the Beast from the East went after Shane's attacker. But Taz continued to dog the heavyweight champion of the world, even proclaiming himself the uncrowned champion, to the point where he actually started to come to the ring with his own title belt. Bigelow told Taz that he'd never get to Shane without going through the 6'3", 350-pound former bounty hunter from Asbury Park. So Taz changed gears and suckered the Triple Threat into believing he wanted to join their fold, only to double-cross Shane and once again take him down.
Rob Van Dam, I just got to know.
The mood in ECW drastically began to change as the franchise Shane Douglas, incensed over the tensions between Candido and Storm, despite his broken arm, decided to team with Triple Threat member Chris Candido against the suicidal, homicidal, genocidal tandem of Sabu and Mr. Monday Night Rob Van Dam. Van Dam and Shane locked up in the ring, and when these two champions fought, it was truly history as Van Dam came off the top rope hard on Shane's arm. The franchise was vulnerable, which brought out Taz, who attacked Shane Douglas, which brought out the Beast from the East, and the war was truly on.
Yeah, and Taz takes advantage of a guy with one bad arm. Bam Bam hurt my arm. Taz didn't do it. Tonight, Taz.
ECW Deathmatch Falls Count Anywhere for the FTW Championship.
Which nobody knew that was the stipulation.
No.
Joey Styles was like, oh, that's an interesting wrinkle.
So the challenger is Bam Bam Bigelow, and the FTW champion, of course, is Taz.
Bam Bam Bigelow in maybe the best shape I've ever seen him, by the way. Granted, he still is wearing his full bodysuit, but he is light on his feet and light on the scale.
And Douglas made sure to bring that up a bunch of times.
Yeah, we were training. He's not 360 whatever. He's
345.
345. Get it right.
He goes, I weighed him earlier.
I weighed him earlier. Great line. He's also he is insane at the desk before the match happens. Then when it gets going, great line where he says, like, I'm going to be impartial. I'm just going to call, I'm the best wrestler in the world. I'm going to show that I'm the best color commentator in the world. And I'm going to call this basically right down the middle.
So this is how the match starts. They tease a lockup, but Taz shoots for a takedown. Bigelow overpowers him and hits a power bomb.
This is the first 5 seconds of the match.
And then Taz pops up and gives Bigelow a judo throw to take him down.
Yes. Two huge lariats hooking clotheslines from Taz. And so, yes, we're approximately 21 seconds into the match, and we have had a power bomb that was no-sold, a Taz judo throw, and 2 lariats. So we're setting the pace here very early.
Yeah. Then he picks up Bigelow and hits a Samoan drop. They fight on the ramp, and Bigelow's kicked off the ramp into the people.
Yes, so the ringside area, we have a ramp, and then we've got guardrails, and the fans close nearby. And so, yeah, we're already into the people here just off the ramp area.
He says move, and Taz leaps off the ramp, but Bigelow catches him and rams him into the guardrail, again, in amongst the people here and amongst the chairs.
Yes, Taz going full Ricky Steamboat here with the flying crossbody. I'd like to think that this is something Taz learned in his formative years as the Tasmaniac in IWCCW with Vic Steamboat.
Bigelow hits Taz with a chair, and they fight through the crowd.
One thing I'll say about this partially just because it's a bigger crowd, pretty much a sellout, Joey. This is much more impressive with these men brawling through the crowd than, say, a Harris brother and a disciple of the new church brawling through the TNA arena.
Oh, jeez. Taz is thrown into a row of chairs, just wiping out an entire row of chairs.
Yeah, there's a problem here in the setup, the planning here, in that all the chairs, like is it annoying when you go to a wrestling show and they have the entire row is connected together?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And it's particularly annoying when they're brawling all throughout the crowd and you're trying to get out of the way, but your chair is attached to 19 others. It's a problem not only for the fans, but we see it be a bit of a problem for these two men a few times.
Bigelow with a 2 count on the floor in the crowd as they keep fighting towards the back. Bigelow throws a piece of the guardrail at Taz. He gets hit, but takes Bigelow down anyway for a quick 2 count. We see a Tazplex on the floor, which had to be brutal.
Yeah, that did not look fun. I also like at one point, I think you mentioned we had a double leg takedown onto the concrete for a 2 count. This is where Taz hits the overhead suplex, the Tazplex on the floor on Bigelow, and Shane is screaming about making Taz pay, which does not sound like an impartial best color commentator ever.
As they keep moving, they slip and fall, and they're both down, and then Taz slaps on an armbar, but Bigelow fights out.
So Joey Styles here, I'll give him credit.
He corrected himself.
He corrects himself. First he calls it a Fujiwara armbar, and then realizes the error of his ways and calls it a Juji Gatami, a cross arm breaker.
So Bigelow continues the beating. Taz then locks on a Tazmission, but Bam Bam counters quickly.
This is on the floor, mind you, and they're slipping around with beer. At some point, someone throws a beer at them. It's kind of a mess out there.
They finally brawl back to the area around the ring. They then back into the ring, and we see Taz is busted open. Powerbomb by Bam Bam. He grabs a table and throws it into the ring. The table is stood up in the corner, and Bigelow throws Taz face first into this table, breaking it a quarter of the way down. So there's still 3/4 of a table in place.
Yes, I loved this. You have so many creative, almost contrived table spots. Here it's just, I'm going to prop up a table in the corner. I hate you. I am going to pick you up by your head and throw you as hard as I can, head first, through the table. This was so cool.
Bigelow grabs the non-broken part of the table and sets it up again in the corner. Taz counters and hits a T-bone Taz plex to put Bigelow through the table. This was an awesome suplex.
It was. And at this point, Shane is completely apoplectic, openly screaming and cheering for Bam Bam Bigelow here. We also learned that in Japan, it's the Yakuza kick, but here in ECW, it's the Brooklyn boot from Taz. Way too cute. It was just like with That's Incredible. Don't give me some cute name for Taz kicking you in the head. It's Taz. He's just kicking you in the head.
That's right. It becomes a real problem late in the later years of ECW when Danny Doring has 75 custom move names. It's like, come on.
I can deal with it with Danny Doring because he's a geek. If you call like him doing a reverse stunner the bareback, who could possibly care? I don't need Taz to have some flowery name from kicking you in the temple.
Taz runs in and Bigelow catches him with a clothesline. Back outside on the ramp again. Bigelow picks him up, but Taz counters with a DDT, and at this point, they hit the ramp and they go through the ramp this time, disappearing again, hearkening back to their previous match at Anarchy Rules when they went through the ring this time.
Living Dangerously,
They went through the ring. This time they go through the ramp.
Yes, and this gets a great reaction, but it can't get the reaction that the going through the ring at Living Dangerously did because you're only going to get that first. We've talked in detail. If you haven't listened to that podcast yet on the free feed, definitely do so. One of the most fascinating reactions to a move ever, in that when they go through the ring, nobody reacts for like 2 seconds. And then everybody, like, it registers. Oh my God, they're not here. They're down there. And everybody loses their minds. Here, this was cool, and people definitely react to it. It doesn't look as visually impressive, though, because clearly, like, all the ramp was actually gone, and it was just paper. When they go through the top, it just looks like they're going through, like, an art project. Still, I wouldn't want to take it, but it doesn't have the same impact as the first one. But a good escalation of what happened prior.
Mikey Whipwreck was the guy who helped gimmick up the ramp so that they could bust through there.
Interesting.
So Bam Bam is the first to emerge out of the hole.
After we've got a dramatic pause, Shane screams, "They're dead." Then he's screaming, like on mic but off mic, screaming at the doctor. He has a great line here. "Get down there to see if they're okay." Wait, to the hell with Taz. See if Bam Bam's okay. Meanwhile, a very drunk guy is near the crowd mics chanting ECW. It sounds as though I'm not a big Simpsons guy. Who is the guy at the bar?
That's Barney Gumble.
Okay, that's what it sounds like, is chanting ECW over and over again. Bigelow finally emerges first, and Shane, in this gravelly scream, is going nuts, screaming, "It's Bam Bam! It's Bam Bam!" over and over again.
Taz then emerges from the hole. He leaps onto the back of Bigelow, slaps on the Taz mission, gets the tap out. 13 minutes, 21 seconds.
At this point, and I'm putting in a request, hopefully you can cut the audio for this. If not, it's okay, but I'm hoping you can. Shane Douglas, I would argue that this is the peak of his pro wrestling career. Him on commentary at the end of this match. He submits. Bam Bam submits, and Shane is screaming, "He was reaching for the ropes!" And Joey says he tapped, and Shane immediately responds, "Your ass!" He starts just completely unhinged, like Ric Flair level unhinged, screaming, "Fix! Fix!" Joey says, "I wouldn't want to be in your shoes for all the money in the world." And then Shane just screams, the only thing I can compare this to is Darth Vader at the end of one of the prequels of Star Wars, where he learns that the love of his life is dead, and he screams, "No!" Oh, that's Shane Douglas here. Taz then grabs the mic. He says, "Hey, Douglas, beat me if you can. Survive if I let you." And we can see Shane. We can see the broadcast booth. It's like on the other side of the arena, like 20 feet up in the air. Shane is losing his mind. He throws his monitor off the broadcast area down to the floor below. Francine is holding him back, and then she's asking Joey to help her, and Joey's like, "I'm not going to help you."
Francine holding Douglas back from the announced position that's high up across the arena was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I thought Shane Douglas was an absolute god among men here at the end of this match and the post-match. Just tremendous.
So the last match, it is a Dudleyville Street Fight.
Was it? Okay, I'm going to have thoughts.
I will have thoughts as well, because I'm sure I have the exact same note that you do here to start this match.
One of my biggest pet peeves
yes, me too.
feud defining, feud ending, feud culminating matches with a blood feud. This where men broke the neck of another man's wife.
Correct.
We'll get to it.
We'll get there. So Bubba, Devon, and Big Dick Dudley are the competitors representing your Dudley boys. They're taking on Spike Dudley, the Sandman, and Tommy Dreamer.
A natural team if there ever was one.
We get a video recap of the Dudleys hitting the 3D on Beulah McGillicuddy, which broke her neck, and she would be out of wrestling. And she actually was legit leaving wrestling at this point to go back to school, and she didn't come back until, I believe, One Night Stand.
Yes.
So
Beulah McGillicuddy leaving ECW is one of the saddest moments of my late teen years. Heartbreaking.
So the Dudleys come out to no music. Bubba then gets on the mic, challenges anyone in WWF, WCW, anyone in the crowd.
Which that immediately brought back memories to me of the first ECW show in Chicago.
Sure.
I
remember.
A TV taping, which would have been later this year. I got my years mixed up. It was later in the summer, early fall of '98, where they did like a 20-minute trying to start a riot, and a fan actually threw a chair into the ring, hit the ref, and they went after the fan. That's what I was thinking here. I do have to just jump in because we're going to talk about Joel Gertner's introduction.
Sure.
And I said a couple weeks ago on this podcast,
you're a fan.
I was a fan. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I did back then. Now, I wanted to die. This introduction lasted longer than that 2-hour MSG WWF show that we reviewed here on the bonus feed.
And this is what I remember. That's the feeling I remember when Gertner was with the Dudleys. Was these long introductions. It was less off-putting when he would just be the color commentator or co-host, opening up the shows with Joey Styles.
The only thing I liked that he would say in the ring introductions, it literally popped me every single time. No exception, including this time, is when he would introduce Bubba Ray Dudley as being rough, ready, and rambunctious. It gets me every time.
So yeah, Gertner does his long. We're running out of time. I don't have time to go through all of the things that Gertner said. He introduces every single member of the Dudley entourage,
which includes Big Dick Dudley, Sign Guy Dudley, sadly not Dances with Dudley from several years prior, Judge Jeff Jones before he was a judge when he was a Danny Davis style crooked referee with a blow up doll that was supposed to be Beulah McGillicuddy.
Yeah, so Gertner does he does his filthy parts of the intro, and the blow up doll is Beulah McGillis Slutty. So there you go. That's Gertner's long introduction. And
see, we would have, if this wasn't the bonus content, we would have had to say like Beulah Promiscuous. But because we're on the bonus feed, we can say that.
Their opponents come out with ladders. They're all carrying ladders and a solid Alice in Chains,
Yes.
Man in the Box, knockoff music. This was a fine job. Whoever they were pushing the lines of how close they could get to the actual Alice in Chains song here. So fantastic knockoff music for Tommy Dreamer's entrance.
This was WCW Diamond Dallas Page level knockoff
Nirvana.
music. There's no way that the same person that was responsible for choosing and then producing
RVD.
this was also responsible for the RVD music. There's no way.
So Sandman pounds a beer and hits himself in the head with the can, busting himself open as he does.
He's smoking a cigarette. He's got his classic ECW T-shirt that's made to look like a bottle of Budweiser or a can of Budweiser. You would know better than I.
Yeah, he does his elaborate entrance, smoking and pounding beers and
Yes.
everything that he usually does to his Enter Sandman entrance, but he was doing this to Tommy Dreamer's entrance here. But we got the full Sandman elaborate smoking and drinking beer entrance. Dreamer and Devon are going to start the match.
So, yeah.
Now,
That's,
Tommy Dreamer, to recap,
yes.
we are having this street fight because Tommy Dreamer's wife had to leave professional wrestling because her neck was broken at the hands of the Dudley Boys. Tommy Dreamer is in a blood feud and wants nothing but violence against the Dudley Boys.
He's teaming with the man in the Sandman, who it's not like they have a storied history of being best buds. He's drawn in men here in Tommy Dreamer and Spike Dudley that are not necessarily his friends, but are the enemies of his enemies.
Dreamer and Devon start by grappling.
They're doing moves. They're having a match.
And trading pin attempts and trying to wrestle, and they do the indie stalemate spot.
Oh my God, so they do the fish out of water pin sequences, they do the indie standoff spot, and again, beyond that, even the structure of this match, a Dudleyville Street Fight isn't a tornado tag?
Nope, they're all on the apron, patiently waiting a tag, and
these pissed me off.
And they do this indie stalemate, and everybody has the same reaction we do. We're like, we don't want this. We want to fight. Why are these guys
Why are they wrestling? Why are they doing moves? Why would your reaction to your wife getting her neck broken by your blood, by like your sworn enemy, the guys that you're in a blood feud with, why would your response to that be sunset flip?
No, it's fight, and we are not seeing a fight at all.
And it's so weird. This is ECW.
It was so weird. And the people were just as confused in the crowd.
And it makes no sense, too, because all these guys are better suited to be doing the wild brawl that this match and this story called for than just catch can wrestling.
So weird. Devon, he gets put on the top. Dreamer with his Hangman's neckbreaker, and Bubba tags in.
Because it's a tag match, everybody.
Tags in. That's right. And Spike wants in, and again,
he can't get in, though, until he gets the tag because these are civilized men.
That's right. And Tommy Dreamer, who can't wait to get his hands on Bubba Ray Dudley, who's now in the ring because he broke the neck of his wife, has no problem just tagging in Spike Dudley, of all people, to fight his fight for him. I'm wildly confused at the structure of this match already.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Bubba immediately beals him, press slams him, goes to throw Spike Dudley into the crowd. Spike falls on him, hits some hard forearms, punches in the corner, goes for the Rana out of the corner, but gets killed with a Bubba bomb that is not called a Tiger Bomb. I note that Bubba Ray Dudley, this might be the biggest he ever was.
He's so heavy here.
He is a sun, and there should be planets orbiting him. He is a large, large man. At this point, Bubba is telling Dreamer that what's happening to Spike is his fault, and Tommy on the apron is apologizing to Spike? What?
How could anyone be a fan of this Tommy Dreamer character?
The thing is, he was my favorite wrestler at this point. I went to school once a week in 1998 with a Tommy Dreamer Innovator of Violence shirt that I was sure was going to get me thrown out of class. And I'm fully on board with Tommy Dreamer here. And even I, 17-year-old version of me, it's like, what are you doing, Tommy?
Now, if you asked me which one of these men was the innovator of violence, I don't think I would get to Tommy Dreamer 6th out of 6th in this match.
Accurate.
So Yeah, after the triple team of Spike, a huge clothesline, huge backdrop, and again, straight wrestling and rule following in the Dudley Street Fight. Spike counters a powerbomb into a Rana this time. Big Dick Dudley tags in with Sandman. Now,
this is where, thankfully, they decide that we're not going to do a whole lot of pro wrestling, because could you imagine?
That's what my first thought was like, now these guys are going to grapple?
Yeah, are we going to get like maybe some worked MMA, shoot at the single, and then go for a Kimura maybe from Big Dick Dudley?
Sandman clotheslines him over the top to the floor.
Well, first, though, they do lock up,
Yes.
which this is where I lost it. I'm screaming at my TV. I write in all caps in my notes, they lock up. Why is this just a wrestling match? Someone end this.
Yeah, but Sandman gets pulled out to the floor with him, and now it finally breaks down into a six-way outside the ring.
Now it's chaos. Now everyone 5 minutes into the match realizes they hate each other,
Yes.
and then we're off to the races with ECW Blood and Guts. Thank God.
Dreamer and Devon fight into the crowd. The fight continues around the ring. Sandman and Bubba are back in the ring. Sandman hits a Frankensteiner off the top to Bubba. It was sloppy and in slow motion. Perfect Sandman style.
Yes, I would not want it any other way.
No.
He kind of half rolls back as he does it. He grabs the top rope to steady himself. This is the point in the history of this move where Joey is calling it the Frankensander and not its much better name that he would give it months later, the Heineken Rana.
That's right. Spike and Sandman set up a ladder. Spike to the top of the ladder.
And
leaps.
this ladder, by the way, we had big, bigger, and biggest. It was like a growth chart with these three ladders, and this was the biggest that Spike Dudley dives off of.
Yeah, he wipes out everyone on the floor. Loud EC dub chants. Sandman puts a ladder onto Devon, then hits a senton bomb onto the ladder, crushing Devon.
Not quite as graceful as the one executed earlier by Hayabusa, in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
So it's not Jeff Hardy.
Spike hits the acid drop on Bubba, but Devon makes the save.
Well, he hits the acid drop, right? There's a ladder in the ring. He hits the acid drop approximately 3 inches away from the ladder. Like, if it's there, use it, dude.
A brutal side slam on the ladder. Devon destroys the back of Spike Dudley. All three Dudleys are tied in the Tree of Woe.
Oh, this spot was so stupid.
And
oh,
then
my God.
Jeff Jones makes fun of Dreamer, and Jones gets hit with a pile driver by Dreamer. Gertner then gets added to the Tree of Woe also. So we've got all four corners now, and we get 4-way drop kicks, including the referee kicking Gertner in the corner.
Yes, John Finnegan hits a drop kick onto the chair. Like, oh, it's just dumb. Like this, like, I complain about some of the modern, like almost meme wrestling that we see, not to go full Cornette because I'm nowhere near that level, but that we see in AEW along with a lot of the great stuff they do. This was one of those things that, like, I would be super annoyed by in 2021 if I was at an AEW show.
Yeah, Dick Dudley hits a, wait for it, sit-out powerbomb onto the ladder.
Yes. It was sit-out powerbomb, kind of a tree slam, but yes, it was a tiger tree slam.
Spike tries to hit the acid drop, but Dick throws Spike off over the top, crashing through a table on the floor.
This was terrifying, and it was great too because it was just the spontaneously regenerating timekeeper's table that you didn't realize was there. You know, like you didn't see it get set up, so it's not in your head like a table spot's coming. Which for me, that's always the best kind. This was very cool.
Sandman with his cane hits Dick, misses Bubba, and Bubba kills him with a shot to the head with a steel chair.
By the way, that move, that tree slam on the ladder, Total Penetration.
Oh, that's right.
is the name of that move. I think I also misspoke. The referee was Jim Molyneux, not John Finnegan.
Same thing. Bubba.
Yes, pretty much. Exactly. They're the referee version of Ted DiBiase Jr. and Chris Masters.
Bubba missed a
Not by physique, by the way. Furthest thing from it.
Bubba missed a splash, hits the ladder. Dreamer DDTs Bubba on the ladder and gets a 3 count.
Because if you pin your opponent, your wife's neck is automatically not broken. And then they're yelling about they've got revenge for Beulah.
They did not.
No,
they did not.
Her neck is still broken. These guys are still alive. No,
they won a match. 14 minutes.
Exactly.
14 minutes and 26 seconds.
Yeah, I love wild ECW brawls, and I enjoyed the 9 minutes of that we got here. The 5 minutes of dudes having a match. That felt more like it belonged in the WWE version of ECW, to be honest. At that point,
just as mad as you were, here comes my anger.
Jack Victory comes in, hits Dreamer with the dustiest guitar shot you've ever seen. I don't mean Dusty Rhodes. I mean dust.
No.
Powder.
The powder that exploded from this guitar.
Why is it there? Is that where Tammy and Chris Candido were storing
their powder?
Is that where they storing the powder from earlier in the match? Is that where it was? I don't know. But yes.
This is my pet peeve in pro wrestling is the powder. A guitar exploding is spectacular enough.
Yes, we don't need random powder.
No, the powder makes no sense. It never has, and it drives me absolutely nuts.
I wonder if there's a tiny Mr. Fuji in the guitar that throws the powder as it explodes. I'd like to think that's what it is.
Oh, so mad about that. The crowd then chants for New Jack, and we get the horrible New Jack overdub music that we've come to fall in love with.
In the ghetto, you've got to play that. You've got to play that here at some point on the podcast, so people that that their memories of this show haven't been sullied by official streaming service dubbed music.
Yeah, so he comes in with all the plunder. He's got it all, and shopping carts and filled with plunder. And New Jack kills everyone with weapons. We get the insane weapons ending. New Jack has a guitar, and I'm like, oh well, we won't. At least we won't see a powder explosion twice. And I was wrong. He hits him with a guitar. Powder explosion again. Plunders everywhere. The Dudleys are all down. Sandman sets up some ladders so that they can all climb up and celebrate as the show goes off the air.
I think my favorite part of this show, maybe the most unintentionally hilarious thing of any of the 60 some odd episodes we've done, if you're listening in linear fashion, I guess actually closer to 80 if you're counting the bonus feed, which you're in right now. When they do the weapon shots, because there's dubbed music, we don't hear the sounds of what's happening in the ring. So what do they have? They have dubbed weapon shots sounds. And they have different sounds for the shopping cart, or a chair shot, or a guitar, or the best is the shopping cart is rattling around as it hits the mat, and they have a shopping cart rattle sound. I just imagine a voiceover artist, when you see making of an animated movie, and they'd show some guy in a soundproof room, and you'd have he'd be hitting something that would make it sound like a thunderstorm.
Yes.
I just imagine some guy in a voiceover room doing that to make
shaking a
shopping cart or whatever, whatever it would be that would make that sound. I legitimately loved and appreciated the attention to detail here. And again, noted, there's no way that the person who did these weapon shot voiceover sounds is responsible for that RVD dubbed music from earlier.
All right, Adam, favorite thing on the show?
Well, I think I just told you. But no, outside of that, Tanaka and Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome just being that feud in that match, just seeing that again. And then even though the match wasn't as great as I remembered it, seeing Hayabusa and Shinzaki in ECW here in a true one-off, and seeing Hayabusa doing moves with Rob Van Dam, just for the kind of just the spectacle and the uniqueness factor of it, that's my other thing.
I agree with both of those things. Anytime we get a Taz promo at peak Taz is great. I thought that the Paul Heyman recap of the Taz Bigelow feud was so great. It was 2 minutes that would catch you up on the year's storyline right up to you could play that over and over again. I thought that was spectacular. In addition to all the things you said, obviously Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka, just off the charts. What a spectacle. I mean, pretty much this whole show was just
super
a spectacle and tons of fun.
I'm recanting everything that I just said about my favorite thing. I'm going back to the end of Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow. By far my favorite thing on this show, which I had no recollection of as a kid liking or enjoying at all, was Shane Douglas progressively losing his mind and then going full Adam Summers MSG 1973 podcast at the end. Just tremendous stuff. As I said, the peak of his career.
I think we've talked about all the things we also didn't care for in the show, so we don't need to rehash that again. So, it was definitely fun to... I hadn't watched this since 1998, so it was definitely fun to go back and see... I didn't remember a ton of the show. A ton of the show was like watching it through fresh eyes, and I loved getting more Jinsei Shinzaki and Hayabusa, which... ask and you shall receive from the wonderful patrons that listen to the show, the supporters of this show, being the randomizer and giving us that on the feed. So again, thank you to patron Kelly for requesting this show. And you too can be the randomizer. You can request a show for us to watch by bumping up to the tier on patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom. Pick the tier to be the randomizer. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. This one definitely, we talked about before, would it live up to the memories? I'd gone back and watched it more than you had. I feel comfortable placing it exactly where I had it before I had gone back and watched it. The number 3 ECW pay-per-view overall, behind those two I mentioned earlier. Great stuff. Thank you again, Kelly, for always picking really unique, different stuff for us to watch. Another home run. And look forward to what you, Kelly, and any of the other Be the Randomizers choose for us to watch.
Thanks again to everyone who supports this show by subscribing to the bonus feed, and we will talk to you again next time.